Sometimes a smell just catches you off guard, like a whisper from the past, just floating in the air. This morning I was baking nothing fancy, just an old apple pie recipe I've had for years. I had that soft music playing in the background, Patsy Cline, if I remember right, and that sweet, cinnamony smell started to fill the kitchen. Land sakes alive, I had to sit down. Because right then, I was back in 1961. Clear as day. Now don't laugh about that pie. It smelled just like prom night. I know, that sounds downright silly. But I swear on my mama's Bible, the moment that smell hit me, I was back in that little powder blue dress, standing in front of the mirror, praying my homemade hairspray wouldn't give out halfway through the twist. My sister, Darlene, she was running around like a chicken with her head cut off trying to curl my hair with a spoon, 'cause we'd broken the only good roller we had. We didn't have a pot to pee in back then, but Lord have mercy, we still found ways to look like we stepped out of Vogue. Well, Vogue, but with home-stitched hems and lipstick borrowed from your cousin who worked at the diner. I tell you what, folks these days don't know what it meant to get dolled up. We didn't have no Sephora, no Amazon to order dresses from. We made do with what we had. You wanted glamour? You worked for it. You stitched it. You teased it, sprayed it, till it was high enough to kiss the sky. Honey, back in my day, we didn't just wear our clothes, we wore our hopes, our dreams, our what-ifs. Every hemline was a maybe. Every button was a secret. Fashion wasn't just fashion. It was freedom in fabric. And I don't know why, maybe it's my age, maybe it's just that I miss those days more than I let on, but that smell brought it all back. Not just the way we dressed, but the way we felt. How we walked into a room like the world owed us nothing, and still we sparkled. We didn't know what was coming down the line. Marriage, babies, heartbreak, years of making ends meet, no ma'am. We just knew that that night we were beautiful, we were bold, we were somebody. That's the thing about memories. They don't ask permission. They just show up, sitting beside you at the kitchen table, ring in their hands, wanting to be told. And I've been holding this one in for a long time. Too long, maybe. You young folks wouldn't understand how deep it runs, the way we fought to be seen, to be noticed. You think it's all hashtags and outfits now, but back then? Oh honey, we had to create magic with thread and bobby pins. So maybe it's time I told this story. Not for sympathy, no. And certainly not 'cause I think I was anybody special. I was just a girl, back in 1961, with a dream and a dress that barely held together with safety pins. But I remember how I felt that night. I remember what I saw in the mirror. And maybe, just maybe, it's time y'all saw it too. Because I'll tell you one thing, fashion back then, it wasn't about following trends. It was about making memories. And this old gal, I've got a few tucked away that might just surprise you. But before we go any further, let me ask you something. When was the last time an old smell brought you back to a version of yourself you almost forgot? Think on that. I'll be right here with my pie and my memories waiting. Well now, if you really want the whole story, sugar, I guess we gotta go back a little further. Before the pie, before the lipstick, even before that powder blue dress. You see, I grew up in a little town just off Route 17. You'd miss it if you blinked driving by. Dirt roads, front porches, and everybody knew your business, for you even did it. We didn't have much, but what we had, we held on to. And Lord knows, we made it last. I was just a skinny little thing back then, all elbows and big eyes. Daddy worked at the mill, Mama kept house and hummed hymns while she cooked. My older brother, Earl, he used to tease me something awful, called me Twiggy before Twiggy was even a thing. And me? Well, I was a quiet one, always staring out the window, watching the world go by, dreaming bigger than that old town could hold. I didn't know much about fashion, not really. but I knew what pretty looked like. I saw it in Mama's church hat with the velvet bow. I saw it in Miss Clara's lace gloves on Sunday morning. And I saw it in the way girls in the magazines stood with their chins high, like they were going somewhere important. We didn't have a television till I was nearly 13, and even then it only got 2 channels if the wind was blowing right. But Lord have mercy, the first time I saw Audrey Hepburn in Sabrina, well, that was it. My little heart about burst. She was so graceful, so sure of herself, and that black dress. Mercy. I didn't know who I wanted to be more, her or the woman who sewed that dress. That was the moment I started paying attention to clothes. Not just what folks wore, but how they carried themselves in it. I used to sit on the porch with Mama's old catalogs, cutting out pictures, potting them in a little scrapbook I kept under my bed. Dreams on every page. A coat with a fur collar, shoes with tiny buttons, a satin ribbon belt. I didn't have any of it, of course, but in that book, oh honey, I had it all. I remember this one time, I must have been about 10, and Mama let me wear her old church skirt to the fall fair. I pinned it up with a safety pin so it wouldn't drag, and I felt like royalty even though I was wearing it with scuffed shoes and a blouse 2 sizes too big. But that didn't matter, 'cause folks turned and looked. Just for a second. And for a shy girl from a forgotten town, that was everything. I used to think back then, if you looked the part, maybe the world would treat you different. Kinder. Like you mattered more. I know better now, of course. But still, there was magic in that belief. And there was kindness, too. I truly believed, at 10 years old, that good manners and a pretty ribbon could open any door. I believed that folks always came back when they said they would, and I believed that someday, somehow, I'd get to wear one of those dresses I kept clipped in out of that catalog. Just once. Just to say I did. That little girl, elbows, dreams, and all, she's still with me. Quiet, patient, always hoping. And sometimes when the world gets too loud, I close my eyes and go back to that porch, back to the smell of Mama's biscuits, the sound of gospel playing on the radio, and the feel of paper dreams cut and glued with the fiercest kind of love. That was where it all started. Not in a store, not on a runway, but in the heart of a girl who had nothing but imagination and a whole lot of gumption. And I reckon that's still worth something. You know, life has a funny way of taking a turn when you least expect it. One minute you're hanging clothes on the line, thinking about nothing in particular, and the next, you're looking straight into a pair of eyes that'll haunt your heart for the rest of your days, in the best possible way, of course. I was 14 that spring, maybe 15, just on the edge of being someone new, but still wearing the skin of a shy girl with dreams stitched into every seam of her Sunday dress. We'd just started going to youth group meetings at the Baptist church 2 towns over, a real big deal for us back then. New faces, new songs, and new possibilities. That's where I saw him. Jimmy Ray. Land sakes, even saying his name after all these years still brings a little flutter to my chest. He wasn't the tallest or the loudest, but there was something in the way he stood, all easy grin and slouched shoulders, wearing this worn green corduroy jacket like it was made just for him. It had a rip in the elbow, stitched up with navy thread, and I remember staring at that little patch longer than any girl should have. But I couldn't help it. He looked like someone who'd seen the world, and Lord knows, I'd barely seen past the edge of our own town limits. He didn't notice me at first. Why would he? I was just that quiet girl in the back pew, trying to keep my skirt from riding up and my thoughts from wandering too far. But something happened that night. After the closing prayer, he dropped his Bible. Not a big moment, really, but the way it hit the floor echoed so loud, it felt like the whole room turned. And when I bent down to help him pick it up, our hands touched. Just for a second. just enough to make my cheeks burn and my stomach do something strange and wonderful all at once. I couldn't explain it. I didn't know what it meant, not then. But my heart, oh, it knew. It beat faster, like it was trying to keep up with this secret it hadn't learned yet. I remember thinking clear as day, I want him to see me. Really see me. Not for what I wore or how I looked, but for something deeper. And I also remember, just as clear, what if I dressed like I mattered? Because up till then, fashion had been pretend. A game I played in my scrapbook or in front of the mirror. But suddenly I wanted to be seen and maybe admired. Just once. That night I went home and tore through my little drawer of treasures, ribbons, buttons, bits of old fabric. I didn't sleep a wink. I stayed up fixing the hem of my only nice skirt and trying to fashion a belt out of a curtain tie. The next week, I wore that outfit like it was made by Dior himself. I even put a dab of Mama's rose-scented powder behind my ears. And when Jimmy Ray passed me in the hallway that Sunday, he looked right at me, smiled, said, "That's a mighty fine color on you." I could have fainted, I swear. Now listen, I ain't saying Jimmy Ray changed my life just by smiling, but he lit something in me. A kind of fire. He made me believe that the way I presented myself mattered, not just to others, but to me. That fashion wasn't just about following trends. It was about saying something without opening your mouth. And honey, I had a whole lot to say. I didn't marry Jimmy Ray. Life had other plans for both of us. But every time I see green corduroy or patch a sleeve with navy thread, I think of him. Of how one smile, one small moment, can shift the whole tide of your story. I guess every girl, no matter how strong she is, comes to a point where she realizes the world don't quite work the way she dreamed it would. I remember it clear as yesterday, the day my world took a turn and the shine of all those magazine dreams got a little dimmer. It was a Sunday afternoon, hot as all get out, and I'd worked all week making myself a new skirt out of a flour sack Mama had set aside for ragcloths. I'd bleached it, stitched it with my best thread, even added a little trim from an old pillowcase just to give it some flair. I thought I looked like $1,000,000. Truth be told, I felt like it too. You couldn't tell me nothing. That was the first time I walked to church with my chin up and my hips swinging just a little, like those women in the catalogs, the ones who always looked like they knew a secret. But the moment I walked into that sanctuary, I knew something was wrong. Folks turned their heads all at once, but not in that nice way I'd hoped for. It was the kind of look that makes you wish you could disappear into your shoes. I heard the whispers, not loud, but loud enough. That skirt's too short, too tight for church. What's she thinking, dressing like that? My cheeks burned hotter than the August sun, but I just kept walking straight down the aisle to sit with Darlene. Only I never made it that far. Miss Ruth, the preacher's wife, God rest her soul, she stood up and put her hand on my shoulder right there in the middle of the aisle. She leaned in and whispered, "You need to go home and change, child. This ain't a place for showing off." My heart stopped. I mean it, just stopped. I didn't cry. Not right then. I just nodded, turned around, and walked back out that church with every eye on my back, like I'd just robbed the offering plate. When I got home, Mama was on the porch shelling peas. She saw my face, saw the skirt, and she just shook her head. "I told you it was too much," she said, without even looking up. That hurt more than Miss Ruth's words. I thought Mama, of all people, would see how hard I'd worked, how proud I was. But Mama was raised on humility and hush, not on color or confidence. She didn't mean to shame me, not really. But back then, being seen was considered dangerous for a girl. That night, I laid on my bed staring at the ceiling, wearing my plain house dress again, wondering what I'd done wrong. Was it the trim? The way I walked? The fact that I felt good about myself? I didn't have the words for it then, but I know now what that feeling was. Shame, not just for what I wore, but for wanting to be noticed, for wanting more. And that's a heavy thing to carry, especially when you're 15 and still trying to figure out who you are. But the truth is, that moment, as much as it stung, it didn't break me. It planted a seed, a quiet little rebellion that would grow in me over time. I didn't stop making clothes after that. I just got quieter about it. I'd wear my best ideas when no one was looking. I'd draw designs in the back of my school books. And every time someone told me that ain't proper or girls like you shouldn't, I'd press my lips together and smile, because deep down, I knew I was building something. Something strong, something real. And someday I swore no one was going to tell me to sit down just 'cause I chose to stand out. I remember the way the light came in that morning, soft and pale, like the world was holding its breath. It was late spring, 1963. I'd just finished my finest dress yet, pale yellow cotton with little white buttons down the back, hand-stitched lace at the collar. I stayed up 3 nights in a row to finish it, sewing by lamplight till my eyes hurt. It was for the graduation dance. My very first real dance. Jimmy Ray was gonna be there, and Lord, I'd imagined that moment 100 times, the music playing, the lights twirling, and him talking my hand like he meant it. But I never wore that dress. That morning, the phone rang. We didn't get many calls back then, just bad news and birthdays. I heard Mama answer from the kitchen, and I knew. I just knew. Her voice cracked like glass. What she said over and over. Then she dropped the phone. Didn't hang it up, just let it swing there by the cord, humming like a ghost. And then she turned to me, real slow, and said, "Earl's gone. My brother, my big brother, my protector, my pest, the one who used to ruffle my hair and call me Little Bit, the one who snuck me caramels from the gas station and told me I'd be somebody someday. Gone, just like that. Car accident outside of Macon. They said he didn't suffer, but I did. I still do. I don't remember what I said, or if I said anything at all. I just remember sitting on the edge of my bed, staring at that yellow dress hanging on the closet door. It looked so full of life, like it was waiting to dance. And I hated it for that. I hated it for still being bright when everything else inside me had gone dark. They buried him 3 days later. I wore black. Not because I wanted to, but because it's what people expected. That yellow dress stayed on the hanger. I couldn't even look at it without feeling sick. The thread that once held me together felt like it was unraveling right there in my chest. You see, up till that point, I thought life was mostly fair. I thought if you worked hard and stayed kind, the world would treat you gentle. I thought dreams, if stitched right, would hold. But grief don't care about your plans. It don't care what you're wearing or how many prayers you've whispered. It just breaks you. Quietly. Completely. For weeks, I didn't touch a needle. Didn't draw. Didn't dream. Folks would stop by, bringing casseroles and pity, telling me Earl was in a better place. I didn't want him in a better place. I wanted him here, Logan at me for talking fashion too seriously, sneaking biscuits off Mama's plate when she wasn't looking. The day after the funeral, Jimmy Ray came by. He brought flowers, yellow ones like my dress. He didn't say much, just held my hand. And I cried for the first time. Not polite tears, neither. Ugly, gasping, body shaking sobs. And he didn't let go. Not once. That's when I realized something. Life don't stop for heartbreak. It don't pause for you to catch your breath. But it does leave little spaces, quiet ones, where people can hold you till you're strong enough to stand again. I never wore that yellow dress, but I didn't throw it away either. It stayed in the back of my closet for years, like a silent promise that someday I'd find joy again. That even after loss, Life could still be beautiful. Different, maybe, but still worth showing up for. After Earl passed, everything went quiet. Not just in the house, but inside me. It was like the whole world turned down its volume. The radio stayed off. The sewing machine sat cold. Even the birds outside our kitchen window sounded softer, as if they, too, were mourning in their own little way. And me? I just existed. I got up in the mornings, made the biscuits, folded the laundry, helped Mama where I could. But it wasn't me doing it. It was just hands and feet moving through the motions, while the rest of me floated somewhere else. I stopped wearing color. Funny, isn't it? After all that fuss over fabric and lace and ribbons, suddenly, I couldn't stand to see a thing that reminded me of joy. I wore gray, soft brown, washed-out blues. I didn't even think about what matched or flattered. What was the point? Beauty felt like a lie, something made for girls who hadn't tasted real loss yet. And me? I was different now. I couldn't go back to being the girl who twirled in front of the mirror. That girl had died right alongside my brother. It was a strange kind of loneliness, the one that comes after tragedy. People stopped coming round as much. They meant well, I suppose, but they didn't know what to say anymore. And I didn't want to be asked how I was. I didn't want to smile out of politeness or a nod when someone said, "Time heals." Time didn't heal nothing. Time just layered days on top of each other until the ache got buried too deep to name. I stopped dreaming for a while. I really did, not just about clothes, but about life. College, big cities, maybe even design school. Those dreams faded like old fabric left out in the sun. I figured I'd stay home, keep house, help Mama, and one day marry a local boy and make do like the women before me. Not because I wanted to, but because I didn't have the fire anymore to want anything. Some nights I'd lie in bed and stare at the ceiling, waiting for that old spark to come back. But it didn't. Not for a long while. It was like someone had flipped a switch inside me and forgotten to turn it back on. Even Jimmy Ray, sweet as he was, couldn't reach that part of me. He tried. He really did. But I wasn't ready to be known again. I wasn't ready to be seen. I think what hurt the most was realizing how fragile everything was. How one phone call could split your life clean in two, before and after. And it made me scared, I'll admit it. Scared to hope. Scared to love anything too much. Scared to sew again, even. 'Cause what if I poured myself into something beautiful and the world just snatched it away again? So I folded away that yellow dress. I tucked away my needles and my patterns. I told myself it was just a phase I'd outgrown. That there were more important things than beauty. That growing up meant letting go of childish things. But deep down, I think I was just afraid. Afraid that if I let myself feel joy again, it would find a way to hurt me all over. They say there's a season for everything, but nobody tells you how long winter can last. Mine stayed for a good while, long enough that I forgot what spring even looked like. But somewhere deep inside, where memory and muscle meet, I still remembered the way fabric felt in my hands. I still dreamed in color, even if I wouldn't admit it. I just didn't know yet that healing sometimes looks like silence, like breathing without purpose, like getting up each day just to prove you still can. I'm not sure when it started, the change. Maybe it was the first time I picked up a needle after what felt like forever. Maybe it was the sound of the thread pulling through the fabric, or the way it felt to hold the scissors in my hand again. It wasn't a big thing, not at first. Just a simple job, helping Darlene fix a rip in one of her dresses. She asked me to do it, real casual like I wasn't gonna say no. I think she could see I needed something to do, even if I couldn't admit it to myself. It wasn't much, just a few stitches here and there, but that old rhythm, the feel of the fabric between my fingers, the way the thread twisted tight, It was like coming home to a place I'd forgotten. I wasn't sure if I was ready, if it would hurt, but it didn't. It was just quiet. And somehow, that quiet felt safe. It felt like permission. I didn't tell anyone. Didn't want them to think I was back to my old ways too soon. But I started to do it more often. Little by little. Hem a skirt. Patch up a sleeve. And with every stitch, I started to feel a little less broken. A little less hollow. And that's when it hit me. It wasn't about the dresses anymore, or even about the clothes. It was about creation. About the way you can take something torn and worn, something that looks useless, and make it whole again. Funny thing is, it wasn't just the fabric I was mending. It was me. I didn't know it then, but every stitch I sewed, every piece of fabric I worked with, was me putting myself back together. It wasn't perfect. I wasn't perfect, but it didn't have to be. Life doesn't wait for you to be perfect. It keeps moving even when you're standing still, and sometimes the best you can do is just take the next step, no matter how small it feels. One day, a few weeks later, Mama asked me if I'd help her fix up an old dress she'd been wanting to wear to the church picnic. It wasn't much, just a plain gingham number she'd worn when I was a little girl, but she wanted it to feel special. She said, "You've got the hands for it, baby. I can see it in you." And it was like she handed me a new kind of responsibility. She didn't just want me to sew for her. She wanted me to create something that mattered. And I guess that's when I finally understood. She was giving me permission, not just to stitch, but to dream again. To let the girl I used to be, the one who wanted to make something beautiful, to come back. To take those first steps out of the shadow of grief and loss, and into something that felt like hope. It was still small, still quiet, but it was a start, a new beginning. I started making things again, just for the joy of it, not because I had to, not because anyone was watching, but because I could. And I remembered what it felt like to create something with my own hands, something that wasn't broken, something that didn't need to be fixed by anyone else, something I could be proud of. I didn't have any grand plans yet, didn't start any big projects or announce to the world that I was back. But I was there. For the first time in a long time, I was really present in my own life, and that was enough. And in a way, that was all I needed. Because sometimes, it's not about fixing everything in one go. Sometimes, it's just about taking one step, even if it's a tiny one, and trusting that it'll lead you somewhere. I think it was the last summer I spent in that house, the one where I grew up. I had no idea it'd be the last, of course. You never know when something's the last time, do you? It's not until after, when you look back, that you realize. I was sitting on the front porch one afternoon, watching the sun slip behind the trees, when it finally hit me. All the years I'd spent holding on to what I couldn't change. All the nights I spent thinking about Earl, about what I should have said, what I should have done. I couldn't change any of it, and for the first time, I realized maybe that's okay. I think for a long time, I believed that letting go meant forgetting the ones we lost, or giving up the memories. That somehow if I let go of that grief, I'd be dishonoring Earl's memory, or my mama's sacrifice, or the girl I used to be. But I learned that it's not like that. Letting go isn't about forgetting. It's about not letting it own you anymore. It's about making peace with the things you can't change and choosing to live anyway. I'll tell you, that day I finally understood. It wasn't a big dramatic moment. No thunderclaps or flashing lights. It was quiet, like the sound of a heart stopping its heavy beat after a long race. I realized that all that pain I carried wasn't a sign of strength. It was just weighing me down. All those days I spent missing Earl, all those years I spent thinking I had to be perfect or something in order to make up for his loss. It was time to lay that burden down. Time to stop dragging it around. And so I made a choice. A simple one, but it felt bigger than anything I'd ever done before. I stood up from that porch and walked into the house, and I started talking things that had held on to me for years, and I packed them up. The little pieces of Earl's old things. The photos that had hung on the wall for decades. The papers, the letters, the reminders of every single thing that made me feel like I was still broken. I didn't need them anymore. I didn't throw them away, mind you. I just packed them. I put them in boxes and tucked them into the attic. I didn't know if I'd ever open them again, but that wasn't the point. The point was that I didn't need them to define me anymore. I chose to move forward. I chose to live without constantly looking behind me. It wasn't easy. I still had my moments, days when the grief would sneak up on me and hit me like a freight train. But I didn't let it control me. I didn't let it swallow me whole anymore. I learned to live with it, alongside it, and still make something out of the time I had left. I chose to wake up every morning and choose joy, even if it was just a little. Even if it was just a stitch in a new piece of fabric, a smile from someone I helped, or the quiet satisfaction of knowing that I had the strength to keep going. I'd never be the same again, of course. But who would want to be? The girl I used to be, the one who danced in front of mirrors with dreams too big for her little world, she was still in me. She wasn't gone. She just grew into someone who knew how to live in the world that was. And I had a new appreciation for life, for every little moment, for every small stitch, and for every step forward. And so I chose to live without apologies, without regrets, and without holding onto things that didn't serve me anymore. I chose to create. I chose to love again, not just others, but myself. I chose to forgive what I couldn't change and to honor the past by not letting it hold me back. I'll tell you what, sugar, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't always easy, but it was mine, and that was enough. You know, when you're young, you think you've got all the time in the world to figure things out. You think life will unfold like a pretty dress, one step at a time, and you'll just know what to do when the time comes. But life, it's not like that. It's messy. It's full of twists and turns that you never see coming. And sometimes it takes a whole lot of years and a whole lot of hurt to understand that. I've lived a long time now, and I reckon I've learned a few things. Not things you read in books or hear folks preaching from pulpits, but the kind of truths that you only find when you're really living, when you've seen your share of heartache and joy, and when you've had to pick yourself up from the dirt more than once. The first thing I learned is that pain is a part of life. You can't avoid it no matter how hard you try. Loss, disappointment, heartache, it's all part of the deal. But that doesn't mean you have to let it define you. There's a choice in how you carry pain. You can let it drag you down, or you can let it teach you something. And honey, let me tell you, the lessons I've learned from my struggles are worth more than anything else I've ever gained. I've learned that we don't get to choose the hand we're dealt, but we sure as hell get to choose how we play it. And I'll be honest, some days I didn't play it very well, but other days I did, and those days are what make me who I am now. I also learned that waiting for the perfect moment is a trap. I spent so many years thinking I had to wait for the right time, the right place, the right set of circumstances before I could move forward. But the truth is there is no right time. There's just now. I spent too many years waiting for something to change, for someone to give me permission to live my life the way I wanted to. But what I've come to realize is that you don't need anyone's permission. You don't need a perfect plan or a neat little package. You just need to make the choice. Every day, to live, to love, to create, to try. It doesn't have to be grand, but it's your choice. The other thing I learned, and I think this is the most important one, is that we are all more resilient than we think. You don't know how strong you are until you're faced with something that shakes you to your very core. When you lose someone you love, when you feel like you can't go on, you think that's it. You think you'll never get up again. But you do. You always do. You find a way. You might not recognize yourself at first, but you find a way. And when you look back, you realize that the person you were before the pain and the person you are now, they're both you. Just different versions. And that's okay. Life doesn't require perfection. It just requires you to keep going, even when you don't feel like it. Especially then. I also want to tell you, don't wait for someone else to fix you. You're not broken, not in the way you think. The world will tell you that you need fixing, that you need to be something you're not. But the truth is, you're exactly who you're supposed to be. You don't need to change for anyone. And you sure don't need to wait around for someone to come along and make you whole. You've got everything you need inside you. It's there. It's always been there. It's just up to you to see it. So here's the thing. If there's anything I hope you take from this, it's this. Stop waiting. Stop waiting for the right time, for someone to tell you what to do, for life to get easier. Life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning how to dance in the rain. And I don't care if your shoes get soggy or if your hair gets messed up. What matters is that you keep dancing, keep moving, keep creating, keep loving, just keep going. I guess what I've learned, what I wish I'd known when I was younger, is that life isn't perfect, but it's worth it. And when you get to the end of your days, you won't regret the things you did. You'll regret the things you didn't. You'll regret the chances you didn't take, the love you didn't give, the dreams you didn't chase. So, my dear, I'll tell you what I wish I could have told myself all those years ago. Don't wait for the perfect moment to start living. The perfect moment is now. And if it's all right with you, I'm gonna keep dancing. You know, when I first started telling you all these stories, I didn't think I'd ever get here. I didn't know where it'd take me, or how it would feel to speak out loud all the things I've carried with me for so long. But now, sitting here, I realize it's not just about the past anymore. It's about now. It's about the present, the day you and I are both living in, right here, right now. When you look back on your life, it's easy to focus on what you've lost. I did that for a long time, looking back at what could have been, what I should have said, what I could have done differently. But as I've gotten older, I've learned to focus on the small things that make life worth living. The stitches we make every day, the ones that pull us together, even when we're feeling like we're falling apart. The people we help, the moments we take to appreciate the beauty that still exists, even after all the heartache. I've learned that life is never really over. Not until it's over. And I'm not done yet. You're not done yet. None of us are. There's always another day, another chance to love, to learn, to grow. And you know what? That's a gift. A gift we can choose to open every single day. But even though life moves on, sometimes I still feel him. Earl. You know, I still hear his laugh sometimes, like it's floating in on the breeze. I still see him in the corners of my mind, the way he'd roll his eyes at my crazy ideas, but secretly be proud of me for following them. And sometimes, I'll sit on that old porch of mine, looking out over the land, and for just a moment, it's like he's right there beside me, his voice in the wind, just like it always was. And so I ask myself, I ask you, do you ever think about the ones you've lost like that? Do you ever wonder if they remember you, the way you remember them? Sometimes, when the wind picks up just right, or when I catch a glimpse of something that reminds me of him, I wonder if maybe he's still looking down on me, wondering if I'm doing okay. Maybe he's out there, just waiting for me to finish the work I started, to make that last stitch, to find peace in the life I still have left. I'm not sure if love ever really goes away. I don't think it does. It changes, sure. It's not always the same kind of love you once knew. But maybe it's like a thread, always woven through the fabric of your life, never truly gone. And I think that's what keeps us going, keeps us moving forward, knowing that even after all these years, we're still connected to the ones who made us who we are. So, I want to leave you with this, dear. This story, it's not just my story, it's your story too, because you've lived it in your own way. Maybe not in the same exact way I did, but I know you felt that ache, that loss, that longing. And I know you felt the joy too, the kind that takes you by surprise when you least expect it. That's life. Beautiful, messy, painful life. And in the end, it's all worth it. So, I'll leave you with this question. Have you ever let go of something that you thought you couldn't live without? And if you have, what did you find when you let it go? Was there space for something new? Or did you just find that the love you thought you lost was still with you in some way? Maybe, just maybe, it was always there, waiting for you to notice. And as for me, well, I'll keep on stitching, keep on living, keep on loving. And maybe, just maybe, I'll keep waiting for the day when I see him again, even if it's just in the quiet of a summer breeze.